Welcoming everybody to this call. My name is Lieutenant Commander Teresa Carpenter. I am one of two of our Eastern Region Public Affairs mentors for the Navy PA community. We do monthly webinars and we also try to match people up with a mentor. So if you're seeking a mentor or you want to be a mentor, please let me know. I'll use the email distro. We just matched up a couple people a couple weeks ago, so we're real happy about that. Unfortunately, Commander Dre had a conflicting appointment, so he's unable to make the call today, but we will provide a recording for those who are unable to join us. And I'm really excited about this session because professional development is a passion of mine. It's an incredibly important part of what we do. And the accreditation in public relations with a military emphasis is now officially recognized by the Department of Defense. There's an active memorandum of understanding that was just signed late last year. Special thanks to Captain Brooke DeWalt and many, many other people, and Nobby, Nicole Schwagman, Beth Teach, the list can go on, of people who played a pivotal role in getting APR+M recognized. It is an AQD credit for promotion. And it's a little difficult for some of us to get it when we don't get time off to go to SDSU. So I have a very, very special guest today, Lieutenant Marycate Walsh, and she is a shining representative of somebody who took this challenge on, and she's going to speak a little bit about her journey getting the APR, what it's meant to her, how it's helped her in her career. I'll give you a little bit of background on her. She is currently the Deputy Public Affairs Officer at 2nd Fleet. Prior to that, she served as a surface warfare officer on the U.S. Roosevelt. She was also an electronic warfare officer in 5th Fleet and 6th Fleet area of operations with Destroyer Squadron 31. She is just a rock star in our community, and I'm so blessed she agreed to come on the call today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marycate to give a little bit about herself, her background, anything that I left off, and then we're going to get into some questions.
Hi, thank you so much for that. Like what just said, I'm Lieutenant Marycate Walsh. I am 4 years as a SWO, now 4 years as a PAO. This is my second PA tour. First was on the news desk. I think that when I was on the news desk, as most Navy people will attest, it's where you really learn the community. You kind of figure out how we coordinate on things, who handles what issues, and why. But the depth you get into.
Can I also ask that everybody go ahead and mute if they've not muted, please go ahead and mute already. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
I was just going to say that really when I was at Chimpo, I felt like I got to see everything, but we only get about an inch deep into the issue. We don't necessarily dig into, certainly didn't really do any comm planning. So I left Chimpo, went to 2nd Fleet. I was, like Commander Hakiko, lucky enough to have been here since we first laid the first brick, which actually happened when we were up at APNAV, when we were sitting in some OPTs with Fleet Forces Public Affairs on what the new 2nd Fleet would look like once it was determined that would be developed. And when I was in the news desk, I was tasked with putting together a comm plan for first the announcement of 2nd Fleet, which happened in May of 2018, and then when Commander Hakiko came to the establishment ceremony, and I really didn't even know where to start. I knew how to do a PAG. I knew what a PAG looked like. I knew how to write speeches. I knew how to talk to media. I knew how I was going to get this to reporters. I knew how to advise my boss on, what was happening in the current moment, but I didn't really know how to put it all together in a plan that would be understood by lots and lots of people. And I think that was even more exemplified to me, my knowledge gap, when we planned and led an exercise in 6th Fleet called Fall Tops. So it was an exercise that spanned 26 different nations. There were over 50 ships, and everybody had a different stake in it. And we were doing this 6 months or so. It was almost a year after we were established, but 6 months after we declared IOC. So it was our job, the 2nd Fleet, to plan this entire exercise and then to go ahead and lead and execute it. And what I found was I had the whole plan inside my own head really well. I knew everything that was supposed to happen and when. I knew what I was tracking, what media were calling, and when I needed to get back to them. But what I didn't necessarily do as well was communicate that plan down to all of the people who were coming in and working for us. I see Kate Sharon on the call, she's one of the M-Pacers who came and supported us, and I felt like really do a good enough job leading up to the exercise and figuring out how I was going to teach all of these people who were just jumping in the last minute to do the mission. So I was drawn to APR+M for those reasons. And then I guess I'll just leave it there. I think we're going to go into some more things.
So you had prior plans that you knew could have been more informed if you had had more of a strategic process. And you had, how did you hear about the APR, and what made you decide to like, what was your path to figuring out more information about the program?
So the first person that kind of came up to me and said, hey, we should do this in our spare time, was when I was on the news desk, and I absolutely had no spare time, but it was Liza Doherty, and she was looking into it because she was really interested in some alternative grad ed programs based on what her next orders were. So she kind of did the homework to put it all together to figure out what we needed to do and when. She typed it up, sent it to us. I kind of just saved it and sat on it for about a year. And then the summer of 2019, after Ball Tap, I kind of revisited it in my own mind. I was like, oh, you know, maybe this is a good time. We did this great exercise. I have a project I can use. Maybe I'll delve into it now. But last fall got pretty busy, and then even more busy was the spring of 21 for us at Second Fleet. So it wasn't until this last summer when I was, at home teleworking, for half the time. We're split shift at Second Fleet, and my husband was studying for the bar exam. So besides being on COVID lockdown and we were living together for the first time, but I don't know if any of you guys have known anyone who's taken the bar exam, but they say that your spouse is a widow or a widower during that time, and it's absolutely true. Right? He was studying even on the weekends for 7 or 8 hours a day. So I just felt like, you know what, this would be a good time for me to have something else to direct my focus to. And it's something that I knew that the community valued. I knew other people that had done it and found it interesting. Another person who had done it in their spare time that I looked to for a lot of, just for processes, 2 people, one being Lieutenant Commander Linnea Rockline, and the other being Commander Nate Christensen. Both of them had done it in their spare time and kind of talked to me through how I could do it too. So then that summer, there's a couple other, I think Lieutenant Commander Desiree Frame came over to film a video with us, and I mentioned I was thinking about doing it, and she said, oh yeah, I'd be interested. So then word kind of got out that a couple of us were doing it, and I reached out to Commander Cornell and asked her to mentor us through the process. So we ended up having a cohort. I think in the beginning there were about 15 of us. And I think that there's still a number of people who are working through it, but at this time, at least 4 of us, and Commander Cornell, back me up if I am speaking, I think at least 4 of us have gotten to the point where we are accredited from that initial cohort last summer. So yeah, that's where it was kind of my path to ultimately determining to do it.
That is so awesome. You basically saw that there was a need, and you not only found a way to help yourself, but you gathered people in your region that were also interested in doing it at the same time as you, and you helped develop a study group with the help of Commander Cornell. I think that is amazing, and the study group still exists. Commander Ben Tisdale, he runs it for the Eastern region. He has the study group. I don't know how much availability the study group has, so there are a couple other ways that you can join like-minded people. And I believe it's worth every penny, and I'll just mention it very quickly. There is an online study course through PRSA, and that's how I got mine. You call in once a week for 1 hour, and you hear from people all across the industries. So it's not just DoD, you hear from nonprofit, you hear from other types of government, you hear from the corporate sector, and everybody has to present a plan and get it critiqued, and everybody also briefs modules. and it was incredibly useful. So I'm wondering sort of, how did you guys do your study group? How was it structured, and how did that help you achieve your APR?
I think I'll start by saying it wasn't totally selfless that I gathered this group of people together. I'm somebody that very much thrives under peer pressure. So I knew if there were other people, thinking of doing it, and I kind of was held accountable by that group pressure, that I'd be more likely to get it done. Then it's much easier to break a promise to yourself than it is to somebody else, unfortunately. But but yeah, so I think at first, and I know that Commander Tisdale and Lieutenant Rochelle Rieger, the other person who's leading it, have gone in and much refined what we initially had. But my first stab was really, I just went through the KSAs and broke them up by week. So when you guys start looking at doing your APR+M, you'll see there are 2 study guides. One is APR+M and one is APR. The APR study guide is what you'll be tested on, and that is most of what you would learn at San Diego State, comm theories or the RPI process in depth, different ways of doing research, different ways of doing assessments. All of those things are in the regular APR study guide and resource materials. Secondly, what is the APR+M study guide, which is just purely about military operations, and that is what you're really tested on that during your panel. So we decided to do the +M first and then the APR second. I think they've reversed that for this coming cohort that's starting up next week, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I think having that foundation in the comm theory first, and then going to the +M, which a lot of us already have background in, will be really helpful for that next group.
And what I would advise people to do is, and please follow up with an email if you need Commander Ben Tisdale's information, because I really don't know how much availability he has left in his current cohort, but he's still a resource to reach out to initially get started with questions. And then, like I said, there is the online study group through the APR, through PRSA. And Navy Cool does still pay for the test for officers and enlisted. So that is another opportunity. So the Navy Cool system can also offset those costs. And to be honest with you, the online study course that I did with Michael Henry through PRSA was worth every penny. I did it back in 2012, and 8 years later, I still am invited back as a facilitator, and it's a family of people that I still know to this day that I keep in touch with. So that in itself is one of the best parts about this program, are the people that you meet and the experiences you have learning about other people's communications programs, their approach to the craft. What I'm interested in knowing from you is, what about going through this process surprised you from where you thought it was when you started? Like, what your perception of the APR process was to what you learned by going through the process?
So I think part of why I was doing it is I'm somebody who, I was looking, like I said, it was a hard time last year for everybody. I was looking for a project while I was, at home and trying to fill my time without going crazy. So project. So part of it for me was checking that box, but I also knew that I wanted to learn. I knew that it was something that was valued, and I knew that no matter what, learning something is never going to be a bad thing. Whatever you take away from the process, you're still going to come away better. So I don't know what I expected going in. I know what I hoped for, but what I found, and it really took me into the last month of studying to really get this down, was the understanding of, I think, the way that our profession ties in with the civilian career path of public relations. We do so much media. We spend so much time on media queries, on doing that tactical public affairs, whereas at least what I got from, I read Effective Public Relations, and from talking to some others, I did do a last minute boot camp for a day, talking to some of the other individuals who are going through it is a lot of what their projects are long-term, well thought out, researched and planned projects. And I had no idea where to even start on something like that. I didn't know how you could measure success. I was kind of skeptical if it was really even possible. But clearly, what I came through learning in the process is that if you do take the time to spend the extra, and you really can, you can have some longer thought out PA plans, and you can have some that you put together pretty quickly. I mean, to the credit of the 3rd Fleet Public Affairs team, Lieutenant Rieger, when she was there, they had, basically 72 hours to get Mercy underway from the time that operation was called. And they actually put together like the bones of the research of our pipe. They put together a comp plan, which I was able to benefit from my actual comp plan. But they were able to do that on such a short time frame in contingency planning. So while certainly the longer term projects will, benefit from the archive process, it's possible to do in short term. So I think just, and learning more about the civilian workforce in PR was really interesting to me, the way that they think about PR in an organization. And I think something that we're seeing more and more now, just being more socially conscious as a PR profession, ethics is something that is in the cornerstone of PRSA and will be throughout the APR exam and your APR board. So just the emphasis on ethics and how we call them the DoD principles of information, but in PRSA they're slightly different, but they have the same foundation. Just how much that is interwoven into every single thing that you do as a public affairs practitioner. And I think that we are in the same mind, certainly, but I definitely see there are times when, we're not sure if we should put something out, or we're not sure if we should have some sort of media engagement on something because it has potential for bad news. And PRSA would say that you absolutely should be forthcoming with information. And in DoD, it's because you owe something to the taxpayers, but in business, it's because you owe something to the stakeholders. There's actually stockholders. There's actually a requirement for what needs to be released for public companies. But moving on from that, looking at even, not even broaching into the political, but looking at political topics from the last week. Yes, we've seen statements come from our military, our political leaders, but we've also seen how many emails have we gotten from, I got an email from Peloton last week, or other corporations talking about where they stand on social issues. And those are interwoven with the PRSA Code of Ethics and in what a lot of my test questions were on. So that I think was the biggest surprise was, I think that we, or the public relations industry can sometimes be thought of as smoke and mirrors. It can be thought of as, that person's really good with media because they know how to handle power exchanges, or they know how to get information and leak it, or whatever it is. But really, I think with this, it demystifies all of that. It adds data into the mix. Preparation is key, and having a good ethical compass, I think, is what PRSA preaches, and I think our community could value, or public affairs practitioners could value a lot from that as well.
I agree. And I want to I don't know if anyone else is hearing static during the call. Are you hearing static on your end, Mary-Kate, when I'm talking?
No, but I have pretty crappy speakers. Do you want me to try and call in from my iPad?
No, don't worry about it. I don't want you to have to disconnect and then call back, but I didn't know if it was coming on from my end or your end. But first off, I completely agree with you that the synergetic relationship between outside practitioners and seeing what they do and learning from their best practices totally feeds into our process, and vice versa. There's certain things that we as DoD do differently, and we do that for very, very good reasons, for operational reasons, a lot of things to do with OPSEC and other things, and communicating on the battlefield. It's just a different perspective that we do, but at the same time, a lot of the ethical practicums, morals are morals, and it's very, very beneficial for us to leverage the resources that PRSA and other organizations. I mean, there is the other organizations, there's the International Association of Business Communicators, there's other accreditation paths. And, you know, as DoD, we don't endorse one over the other, but we also want to partner with these organizations because they can provide a lot of resources and tools and mentorship for our community. I just have one last question, and then what I'd like to do is turn it over to the participants and see if there's somebody else that has other specific questions. And my last question is, once you got your APR and you had the designation, what did you do differently in your day-to-day, and what did you see differently? Because I know I saw a lot of things a little differently based on going through the process.
Yeah, I would say really the change started before I got my APR+M. Back to when we were doing exercises in August, when I was just starting to get really in-depth into the process. We're really lucky at our command. We have an MC1 that has a master's in communication as well-versed in media analysis and content analysis. So as part of our process now, we have an evaluation that we do after every a small one, but you know, there might only be 7 or 8 articles, but we do an evaluation of all of our goals that we set at the beginning. So just changing that to be able to measure success slightly. And then anyone who works in an office that has a maritime operations center and the way that functions, the RPI process feeds right into that. So we're about to go through our mock cert, and I was approached by our assessments lead who said, well, I'm really struggling on how to assess you guys. What exactly is it that you guys are looking for, or how can we feed into this? Because in the past, we haven't really known, you know, what to say for that working group, which is a big part of our efforts. And I was able to kind of line up for him the things that we could do to show whether we're on plan or off plan. That's something that military, you know, in the military, we love to say whether we're on plan or off plan, or, you know, whether we have to do a reassessment or a branch plan or whatever it is. So we can very easily work into the military planning process. You don't have to. I mean, we were certainly successful beforehand. We had, you know, a lot of success. We didn't always know why we were successful, or we didn't always know where we could have done better, or what alternative narratives there were that existed. So I think just having a better understanding of start to finish, demystifying the process more than anything else. It's something that once you understand it, it's so simple and can be applied very quickly. And it takes away the, you know, guessing games of whether or not we did our job.
Absolutely, Mary-Kate. I totally agree. It's very interesting because GIPS EPA, we're very much advocates of inserting ourselves within the operational planning process. And that ties right into what APR is about. And what RPI, I think, did for me was it gave me a framework and it gave me language to talk about certain things like a measurable objective or an overarching goal or a strategy, or how to nest a tactic under a strategy. It just gave me this framework, like a blueprint. And it's interesting, I joke all the time on the online calls that the RPI process is not just communications. You can apply this framework to making a decision about where you're going to travel to, or, you know, any decision that involves research. Right now we have a leak in our home, and we're basically applying the RPI process to how we're going to, are we going to sue the previous owners? Are we going to go with this contractor or this contractor? What is all of our strategies that we're going to do to attack this problem? And you can do that with any problem, and that's what RPI gives you. So not only does it let you network, it gives you usable language, it gives you a framework, it helps your career. So to me, it's just a no-brainer, and I'm so proud of you that you joined the journey and decided to get this accreditation, because I am a huge believer in it. I'm a huge advocate for it. I was very, very happy in my Board of Ethics and Professional Development thing that I do for PRSA yesterday. Captain DeWalt talked about the MOU getting signed, and I think that's a wonderful advancement for the public affairs community to be have a ongoing agreement with a trade organization where we can leverage one another and get best practices. So with that, I'm done with my questions. So I'd like to turn it over to the group for any questions. So I see that Marissa, and I know I'm always pronouncing your first name wrong, but what is your question?
Like Teresa, but with an M. It's Marisa.
Marisa, yes, yes.
Yeah, and last name is Human because I know people have been confusing my new last name. Marycate, I'm curious, and I mean, this actually goes for either of you, but Marycate, if you'd be so willing to share, looking back, what's the number one thing, or what are some things that you would do differently about the whole process?
Sure. I think that, like I said a little bit earlier, I would have gotten into the comm side of things before I got into the military side of things, just because I feel like I'm JFMU1. I just finished up that. I already had a lot of that information. So I feel like before I even broke open the book, before I even broke open APR, Effective Public Relations is the book that a lot of people read to coincide with APR. It's about $170 on Amazon. I went ahead and invested in it just because I wasn't paying for anything else because Navy Pool's covering it. But before I even opened that book, it had been almost like 2 or 3 months of working through the essay questions and learning all the military material, which is a lot of things. Not that I knew everything, I certainly didn't, but I already had a lot of experience there. Whereas I had next to note, I had zero experience with civilian public affairs or the PR. I shouldn't say civilian public affairs. I think what's interesting about APR is what it taught me is, in the Navy, we have DIMFOS, which is great. I'm heading there for my next tour. But a lot of other professions, like if you're, Ashley, she was in the F-18 community, or, SWOs, they have a pipeline that they learn their profession before they start operating. Sometimes as PAOs, we're just kind of thrown into it. And a lot of the resources that exist for furthering ourselves in our profession actually exist outside the military. So whether that's through something like APR+M, or it's through, taking a course at Georgetown. I know they have a couple of boot camps or something that I took it when I was at Chimpo. But learning from those civilian practitioners who have a diverse experience and applying it. So if I were to do it over again, I would start with the APR and then move into the APR+M. And that way you can, when you're writing your questions, your answers to your questions, you should be interweaving. It's kind of like, you have to kind of, it's like writing a PAG almost, because whoever's on your panel presentation is going to be your 28 questions. Mine was, some people have been, 10 pages, some people as long as 20 pages when you fill them all out. But that will go to all your panelists, and they will use those to ask you questions. So if there's something that you answer better, they'll leave it alone than maybe some of the other things. So I wrote all my questions and then kind of focused on the APR part, and I could have done a better job in interweaving it. I think I would probably have a better grasp on the material had I done it that way. But so long answer, but that's basically it.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions? I don't see any hands raised, so I'll just throw it out there. All right, Matt, you're up.
So just talking in general terms, one thing for me that I think would have made a difference as far as looking to attack this sooner than I am now, maybe in organization messaging, more on the enlisted side, kind of the mid to senior enlisted side, as far as this being an actual opportunity. Because for many years, I personally looked at this as this was like an officer thing. You had to have a college degree, you had to be on the officer side of things to be able to go for this certification. But looking at it more recently, I see that it's actually got the experience option vice the degree. I know it's more rare this day and age, but I'm actually an enlisted person that does not currently have a degree. I'm actually working to finalize mine right now. But just kind of more information on the enlisted side, I think, to build awareness that this is something that is open to enlisted personnel with experience in this field, and this is an opportunity that we can take advantage of.
Marycate, I can take that if you, or turn it over to you.
I know it is available to enlisted, certainly, and two, I believe. So Senior Johnson, who just picked up officer, was in our cohort for a little while, and then Chief Carey, who's at the White House, is APR+M. So I know that there are a few enlisted who have taken advantage of it, but I think it has a lot of similarities to the DICE model that we teach our sailors. They probably correctly have more of a focus on that design aspect, the creativity, but I think that that's something that as we could actually learn from as PA professionals, because a lot of times, having a process is great so long as you're not, you're keeping that operational arc, to use a military term. So I have not, I know that there are a number of senior enlisted who have thought about doing it, but I don't know. I do know my MC1 absolutely could do it tomorrow. He has a master's in communication. It's been helpful for us as a command. You don't have to be an officer to read and decode and code media stories. You don't. You can understand what your themes and messages are. You have just as good a grasp of what our command priorities are as anybody else. So absolutely, it'd be helpful for any level of communicator.
Yeah, I would just add on, Mary Kate, that I think it's just an advocacy thing. We haven't emphasized it as much in the enlisted community as we have in the officer community, but I believe that any enlisted, especially once you make first class or chief, it ought to be something that's on your radar. Not only, there's so many reasons to get it, and I didn't even mention this one either. It's a great bridger for if you want to go into the civilian sector and retire, and you're looking at something that will help, talk about what your credentials are and your credibility. So there's a million reasons to go for it. And like Mary Kate said, there isn't anything that you're going to learn through the APR process that you haven't already been exposed to. The biggest thing that it just gave me was language on how to do my craft. And I think that can benefit all of us. I used to teach RPI to my my media team on board Nimitz. I would just run them through the 12 steps so that they understood the process by which we were putting together our communication plans. And with that, Commander Cornell, I see you raised your hand, so I'm gonna turn it over to you.
No, Teresa, I was just going to say I've had quite a few senior enlisted reach out about APR and APR+M. The one thing I wanted to bring up is the difference between the two. So there's APR+M and then there's APR. And a lot of people ask, well, what's the difference? So the APR+M, just during your panel presentation, has a military focus. You have to do a military topic, and you have to do additional essay questions. The test is the same no matter what. So a lot of times people will just want to weigh whether they want the +M or APR. So that's just something to consider as well, especially if you are looking to transition. You just may want to do the APR and not do the +M part.
Excellent point, Commander Cornell. I completely agree. And there's a lot of practitioners, even in the officer side, who only have the APR. They haven't yet gone for the APR+M, and I would imagine they say that it's just as beneficial. I was one of the first back in 2012 to get it, back when the accreditation had just added the +M, and it's been amazing to see the evolution of the program and so many milestones that have been achieved from getting the AQD credit, thanks to Commander Cornell. She played a big piece in that, to the MOU, to the largest military attendance we ever had at one of our international conferences for PRSA. That was amazing. If you can ever make it to one of their conferences, it's very expensive, but it's very worth it. I just learned so much, and it was an incredible experience to be there. So it provides you just with such a great opportunity and wealth of knowledge from fellow experts. And with that, do we have any other questions or any other thoughts on the program that anyone would like to share? And if not, that's okay too. It is, mid or late week, and we all have other things we probably want to get to, and it's always a busy time. So what I will do is I'm going to turn it back over to Mary-Kate for any closing thoughts that she might have, and then I'll close it out. But over to you, Mary-Kate.
Sure, thank you. So if anybody is interested and wants to just know what my timeline was, or wants a copy of my questions to get started, or whatever resource that you need, feel free to reach out. I can help you with what I did, and certainly direct you to much smarter people.
Thank you. And the other thing that I think is very, very helpful when you do this is connect with somebody that has a PRSA account. There's quite a few of us that are members of PRSA. It really would help to get your hands on some military silver anvil awards. Arlo Abramson comes to mind. He just won a silver anvil for his AI program that he does at DoD. Because those are the programs that have been recognized as having a very sound RPI process. Another option is to go through the Thomson-Ravitz Awards and look at the previous award winners and how they did their 2-page information papers. Because that was also one of my struggles when I first came into the program, is we didn't have a lot of programs that showed RPI. Now I see a lot of comms plans that show RPI. So that is also very beneficial if you want to do this, is you want to look at other people's submissions. I feel like sharing is caring, and there's a plenty of people out there who I think are willing to share what they did and how they did it. So with that, if anyone doesn't have any more questions for me, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. We're still putting our program together for the next couple months, so you'll see an email from me on that. I think we have a good idea of what we're going to do next month, but don't want to give it away yet because I still need to talk to Commander Dre about it and make sure it will fly. It's a very interesting topic, but I think a very timely one in light of the current events. And then this will be recorded and posted to an unlisted YouTube link for those that were unable to make the call. And I'll also put a link to the APR+M link on PRSA. And with that, I want to thank everyone for their time. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your week. Happy New Year, and talk to you all later. Bye.